Hello, everybody, and welcome to Godspeed TV. I'm your host, Riley Roseby, your guide into this AI-enabled paradigm shift in the aerial economy. Now, we have entered December. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I hope y'all enjoyed a lovely holiday weekend over the last few days. Spent time with family, ate some good food, all the fixings there. But now that Thanksgiving is past, we got to ask the question, is Santa coming? And on Wall Street, we have the Santa Claus rally. And JC gave us a wonderful, friendly reminder here that this year's Santa Claus rally period doesn't kick off until December 24th. Watch how many people screw up that between now and then. Well, JC might be thinking I'm going to screw this up because I'm already talking about it. But we got to take a look at these major indices and see what is going on here. The market's been an absolute mess for what? I don't know, last month, 2 months. Really just gyrated sideways, a lot of chop. And as you can see, in the last 4 sessions, we have been trading in a very, very, very tight range, right at the all-time highs. And this isn't just 7 stocks like everybody wants to talk about, right? So this is the S&P 500 ETF, SPY, but we can take a look at the equal weight S&P 500 ETF, RSP, and it's got a very similar look. Once again, flagging at those all-time highs. This thing really hasn't done anything. I got to think, is Santa Claus coming? I wouldn't be asking this question if we're flirting at the lows, but the fact that we're flirting at the highs makes me wonder, are we going to start to run and really set ourselves up for an absolute monster Santa Claus rally? That's what I'm watching for. That's what I'm looking for. We got the small caps here as well. This is a weekly chart, so you can see this massive base that the small caps have been putting in. We've been knocking at the door. Everybody's talking about the small caps. They've been chronic underperformers for the last, 4 or 5 years? Now may finally be the time. We're starting to peek our head up, knocking on the doors once again of those all-time highs. And here is a beautiful chart by Mr. Jeff Hirsch. Shout out Jeff at the Stock Traders Almanac, who does the seasonality work for us, digs into the Santa Claus rally, gathers all the data. He is the absolute man. If you haven't checked out the Stock Traders Almanac, I highly suggest you do so. But I pulled this chart from his Twitter feed earlier this week, and look at that. The small cap surge begins mid-December. Well, we're sitting here at December 3rd, and we're staring at a chart where the small caps look like they're on the verge of a breakout. So if the small caps look like they're on the verge of a breakout, the large cap stocks, the S&P 500, also looking like they're on the verge of the breakout. And then we get this friendly seasonality chart from Jeff there talking about a small cap surge beginning in mid-December. Now, you guys, this data, Jeff has been collecting this data since 1979. So he's got, 46 years of data here? This isn't just cherry picking 1 or 2 years. He's done the work, and I think I got a bet on him. I got one other chart before we move on, and this is ASML Holdings, $400 billion semiconductor, breaking out to all-time highs. I'm curious to see if the market follows suit. Absolutely, beautifully clean breakout. We had a nice gap. Didn't let anybody in, and it's just been green bars ever since. Now, autonomy, right? We're talking about the aerial economy, but autonomy is the first step into the aerial economy. We have to figure out how these robots move on the ground before we can start adding another dimension and getting up in the air. So there was a great op-ed in the New York Times on Monday. The data on self-driving is clear. We have to change course. And this is what it's all about, folks. New technology is cool, but new technology isn't cool if it doesn't actually help us. And self-driving cars helps us. The data is very clear. Waymos are way safer than human drivers. Take a look at this. Crashes per million miles, serious injury or worse, two basis points versus 23 on the Waymo versus the human driver. But any injury, this bottom one down here is really fascinating. Just look at the discrepancy. Human drivers have about 4 crashes per mile, where the Waymo has less than 1. Now, it's still early in this autonomous driving era, but you got to think the robots are only going to get better with time. This is the worst the robots are going to be at driving ever for the rest of our lives. And if the data is looking like this, you got to be betting on autonomy. So where are we at with autonomy? Well, Tesla, I want to say we talked about this 2 weeks ago, but Tesla received its permit to operate in Arizona. It hasn't launched the robotaxi service. I downloaded the app. As soon as it comes out, I'm going to take a trip down to Phoenix. Maybe I do a little compare and contrast, ride a Waymo and then ride a robo-taxi, but we're still waiting for Tesla to do that. But meanwhile, Waymo is making a lot of moves, you guys. St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Philadelphia, all added today, December 3rd. Now, Waymo has, they have their different approach using LiDAR versus Tesla's just using the vision of the sensors. And Waymo takes a little bit more time to map out these areas, but it's really fascinating to see them opening up the self-driving in all these different locations. And to throw the cherry on top, they are fully autonomous now in Dallas, meaning there is no safety driver for Waymo in Dallas. So that is some big news. Big news. Now, if we're wondering about just the general health of the autonomous driving trend outside of Waymo and Tesla, because, right, if this trend is going to proliferate and be a thing, we are going to see venture capital get involved. We are going to see startups coming out of the woodwork. There's going to be dudes building trinkets and gadgets and gizmos in their garage. And here is Autolane building the quote unquote air traffic control for autonomous vehicles. So these guys partnered with the Simon Property Group. They're going to be setting up areas basically like, how Uber and Lyft and all those other rideshare have their designated drop-off points for Uber and Lyfts. Well, that's all these guys are doing. They're just going to have designated drop-off areas, designated pickup areas for autonomous cars. They raised $7.5 million. This is a trend to watch, folks. And we're talking about Santa Claus rally. Well, I think the number one stock I'm watching going into the end of the year is got to be Tesla. Now, big day today, up 4%. Haven't been able to creep up above 460, but I was really, really pleased to see once we got back above 420 at the end of the month last month, we have stuck that level. We've defended that level. We were creeping into the 430s, and then today, nice big up day, up 4%. And, I got a chart out of order. Let's go back. I want to take a look at this long-term chart of Tesla. This is the weekly, right? And this actually, it doesn't quite look as strong as the small caps in terms of a big base, but we're pretty close. This is a 3-year base, folks. And we all know what Tesla did in 2019 and 2020. I hope you're ready, because it might be finally time for Tesla. We've been talking about it for God knows how long. We are due for one. And then here's the autonomous and electric vehicles ETF, ticker DRIV. Now, I really want to see this thing get back above 30. 30 is kind of the line in the sand that I'm looking for. Big psychological number, right? Humans love to anchor to these psychological things. It's just hard-coded in our DNA. And you can see on the daily chart, we are slowly creeping there. And you can make what you will with my fun little rectangle clouds on my technical analysis. Now, obviously, Tesla is involved in the robo-taxis and autonomous driving. But Tesla lives at the confluence between autonomous driving and robotics. And this morning, there was a report that the Trump administration plans to accelerate U.S. robotics. Politico says Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has been meeting with robotics CEOs and may back an executive order next year. We've been watching these executive orders, right? The Unleashing American Air Dominance, the nuclear renaissance. Well, we're now getting robots, a robotic renaissance executive order, really whatever that means. But it's great to see kind of the wind at our back for this trend. Have your own opinions about the current administration. I try to stay out of it. But as market participants, you want to see that the administration is pushing the trends that are working. And this is exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing the administration push AI. We're seeing the administration push nuclear, push flying cars and drones. And now they're talking about pushing robotics. So big area to watch. I got one other stock in the aerial economy, kind of leaning in here on this Ondas. And we've talked about it. It's up like 10% today. Big day. And this has been an absolute whipsaw of a name. So I've had to kind of wade into it and keep my size relatively small just due to the height and volatility. But this thing looks ready to go. Let's keep moving forward, folks. So there's some nuclear grants that we need to talk about, right? We talked about the administration backing nuclear. Well, they're putting their money where their mouth is. The Energy Department hands out $800 million in grants for small nuclear reactors. 2 more nuclear companies have been awarded large grants by the Trump administration. I want us to take a look down below. I highlighted GE Vernova. That is intentional. We're going to take a look at a couple charts here. We're first going to look at the uranium and nuclear ETF, ticker NLR. And this thing is in what? A 25, 26 year base. Going back to 2007, 28 year base, if we could do some math. And we broke above those levels. We kind of flushed. Nuclear's been in a pullback. We haven't been seeing the red hot nuclear stocks, the OCLOs, the SMRs, the NNEs. We've been in a pullback, and this is the daily chart. And you can see, right, you keep an eye on that highlighted rectangle because those are the former highs. And you can see we're right back at that level. We need to get back above 140 for this trend to really kind of work. But remember, I highlighted GE Vernova in that press release or in that article, and there's a reason for it. Take a look at this one, right? Ever since its earnings gap in late July, the stock has gone nowhere. It's just steadily grinded lower. Well, it's been putting in a little bit of a bottom. You can see it defended this 540 level very, very well. We're trading above 600. And if you anchor a VWAP, I don't have it on this chart. Go ahead. If you're at home, if you got TradingView, anchor a VWAP against this earnings gap here in late July. Let me know where that's at, because that is the resistance level that has just been, we've been grinding lower on. And then we take a look at the long-term chart, and yes, this thing goes from the bottom left to the upper right. Exactly what we want to see. So if GE Vernova, I'm thinking like we got to get above 620. I don't know. You could probably take a feeler here for right now. You're going to have to give it back to 540 if that's what you want to do. But we gotta keep an eye, because this name ripped off those April lows, and it might be poised for the next leg higher. But folks, that is all I have for us today. Be sure to subscribe to the Godspeed newsletter. Go ahead and visit our website at godspeed.today. You know, I try and write 3 to 5 times a week. Depends on the week. Sometimes you're more inspired than others, so we get more posts and fewer posts, and we all know how the markets go. Sometimes you don't want to talk about the markets, right? You don't need to talk about it all the time. But I appreciate your guys' support. If you would do me a huge favor, if you enjoyed today's program, you know, maybe share it with a friend. Text your buddy who you talk about markets with. Let them know that there are people talking about flying cars, because I know I'm not alone in my interest in this. We're all waiting for it. Give us a like, throw us a comment. I'll see you guys next week.